This cycle has the most potent effects with the least side effects. You want to know what it is? Stay tuned. I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
RX Television, RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Bodybuilding, non-bodybuilding, whatever topics are on your mind, this is your forum to ask Dave whatever it is you want answered. We're going to go right into the questions. The first two questions on this show from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. If I'm not going to do a show, but I follow your mass gaining protocol for a cycle, what is a basic cycle for muscle mass, someone who's not going to be competing at a show?
Look, I get this question a lot. What is the most effective cycle to put some size on, but I don't want any side effects because I'm not really competing. There's no reason for me to risk it. And you know what? This is the same advice I would give to someone who comes to me who says, I'm 50 years old and I want to do a cycle. And I do want to compete because 50-year-old guys, our bodies are not as resilient as the 20-year-olds and the 30-year-olds. So base of testosterone is always a good way to go because testosterone is the number one mass builder. All right. It's also the least, the compound with the least side effects, especially if you use a long-acting ester like an anthate or a cypionate, because first of all, testosterone is not toxic to the body because it's what the body produces. And secondly, long-acting esters take a really long time for the liver to break them down. And it doesn't add any real stress to the liver because it's such a long-acting type of compound. Whereas the short-acting esters have to be broken down much quicker, and that requires that the liver work harder in a shorter period of time. So obviously a base of testosterone, and as we've said before, the most bang for your buck is to stack two compounds, okay? I know guys doing HRT, you're better off stacking 50 milligrams of DECA and 50 milligrams of testosterone a week than taking 200 milligrams of testosterone a week alone. You'll get better results with those two mildly dosed compounds together as opposed to a single compound alone. It's just the way it is. You could ask me why that is. I don't know. No one knows. Two compounds stack together better than one. So if you're trying to put some decent size on, looking for the least side effects, you go with the long-acting anabolics as well. So that could be EQ or DECA. So my favorite, cycle, let's say we're going to do a 16-week cycle. You can do 600 milligrams of testosterone a week, like a cypionate or an anthate, and you can do like 400 of DECA a week, 400 of EQ a week. And if you're lazy, you could take it all in one shot. If you're not lazy, I would spread it over 3 shots a week. And what I would do after 8 weeks, I would switch. So in other words, you're going to do testosterone and DECA for 8 weeks, and then you can do testosterone and EQ for 8 weeks. And that to me would be a very non-toxic cycle that would give you really good results. Now you can go lower in dosage, but the person who's asking this question is looking to get some gains out of it. But you could literally do 100 of DECA and 100 of testosterone for 8 weeks, and then 100 DECA, 100 EQ a week for 8 weeks, and probably get really nice results too. But if, like I said, if you want to get it to the threshold where you're going to put some good size on without getting excessive, estrogen production and DHT production where you're going to get side effects, the 600-400 ratio to me is ideal.
Second question, again, these first two questions are from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Does glycemic index of foods matter?
The glycemic index is kind of an arbitrary scale that I don't know who put it together. It was the Food and Drug Administration or the American Heart. I don't know who exactly came up with that whole scale, but it's a measure of, it's a ranking essentially of how much insulin is released in response to the food that you're eating. specifically carbohydrates mostly. I mean, you can do it with all foods, but we look at it mostly with carbohydrates, okay? They give 100 rating to like pure table sugar, which would be, I guess, sucrose, or white bread. Believe it or not, white bread, is digested almost instantaneous. It's essentially like eating sugar in a fluffy piece of material. What that tells you is that when you ingest that food, it gets absorbed so quickly into the bloodstream and raises blood sugar so fast that the pancreas has to produce a maximal amount of insulin very rapidly. Now, what's the problem with that? Well, the problem with that is that a lot of times when the pancreas has to overreact to food that gets absorbed very rapidly, it releases too much insulin. So what happens is you absorb all that sugar into your cells, muscle cells, fat cells, whatever, wherever it's going to go, and then blood sugar goes too low because your body has released too much insulin. And what happens when your blood sugar goes too low? You have to either eat more, or your body then has to release counter-regulatory hormones like glucagon or cortisol that will then push sugar into the blood and raise blood sugar. And that whole little thing is not good, okay, because it usually results in fat gain, okay? So that's why eating simple sugars and stuff that has a glycemic index that's too high, especially if you're not really monitoring quantities of food, can lead to, fat gains. That's why we tend to use, lower glycemic index carbs in the off season when we're eating a lot of food. When you're on a diet that has very specific amounts of carbs, you can eat high glycemic carbs like white rice because we're combining it with fats and protein, and that's going to lower the glycemic index. It's only when you're eating the carbs alone, like if I would just take a piece of white bread and just eat it now, or eat a piece of candy with pure sugar in it, like a Fun Dip. Remember Fun Dips? That would spike my blood sugar, and then it would drop because my insulin release. But once you combine carbs with proteins and fats, it changes the glycemic index. So low glycemic foods like sweet potatoes have a lower glycemic, brown rice, because they have a husk on them, and it's a higher fiber content. It's harder for the body to digest those foods and absorb them, so they get into the bloodstream slower. Even pasta has a lower glycemic index, as it requires a lot of digestion. And so therefore you get a much more even insulin production. Usually the insulin release is more appropriate, meaning you're not going to over-release insulin. It doesn't mean you still can't get fat if you're eating too many carbs. It just means the glycemic index, or the amount of insulin you're going to release in response to that food, is going to be lower. And so it's a ranking scale. Obviously, if you were to say, what's the glycemic index of me eating, a chicken breast, it's going to be very low, because the protein in chicken breast is not going to elicit much of an insulin response. It'll have a little response, but it's going to be probably 10 or 15, okay? Whereas, like I said, white rice, potatoes are going to be really high, up on that glycemic scale. The problem is it's very arbitrary, and I don't know who ranked it and who made it. And it really doesn't have any real world experience other than to give you an idea of what foods you might avoid and what foods you might want to include in your diet, okay? Because of the fact a lot of people can get reactively hypoglycemic, meaning that you get that low blood sugar after you eat those high glycemic carbs, and you feel like crap. And I've seen people pass out at jobs because they ate a piece of candy, and I've seen people backstage pass out, or people on stage. I helped this girl once. She was on like a no carb diet, and she was eating tons of sugar backstage. I didn't know it. She goes out on stage. She should have won the whole show, and she almost passes out on stage. They have to take her off the stage because the blood sugar went so low. So you don't want to do stuff like that. That's going to cause that reactive hypoglycemia. Now, these two questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app are very good, thought-provoking. Took me a while to answer them, but you get a lot of information from them. And that's what you get on the app. If you subscribe to my Dave Palumbo Experience app, it's $29 a month. You can download it at the Android store or the iTunes store. And you get Dave Palumbo basically as a coach in your back pocket. I answer everyone's questions in an open forum, so you see everyone's questions, everyone's answers. I do a video every week, a Q&A video. In addition to Ask Dave, you get a special private video on the app, also answering questions, just like we're doing now. You also get a workout every week. All my videos that I've ever done, all my writings I've ever done in the app in a very concise, organized manner. It's a great resource. If you're looking to constantly keep evolving and learning about bodybuilding, it's a great tool for only $29 a month. And I want to thank all of you who subscribe and support me.
Before we proceed to the rest of the questions, we have a sale from our friends at Type Medical Center, 10% off all on all their medical weight loss therapies. Again, if you call them at 727-389-3220 or visit titanmedicalcenter.com, and they have a form, and in the form, they ask for referrals. So if you put in RxMuscle or Dave Palumbo, they will hook you up. Dave, you want to tell a little bit more about the weight loss therapies Titan has to offer?
They have Rectitide now, which is the triple GLP-1 agonist. Well, it has a GLP-1 agonist, it has a glucagon agonist, it has the GIP protein in there. So Mounjaro was 2 drugs in one. This is now 3 drugs in one. I have a couple people who started taking it. They like it. The gold standard prior to this was the Mounjaro version, which they sell there as well, which is tirzepatide. And a lot of people feel like that they've got the best results from that. They're just, they just came out with Rectitide. So at least made it readily available just recently. So you might want to try that. If you've tried the Mounjaro version, you might want to try this one with that added 3rd compound and let us know how it works. But the good thing and the good news is, number one, they have it in stock, which a lot of pharmacies don't. Number 2, it's cheaper than most pharmacies. Number 3, they're offering 10% off this week only. So guys, check it out.
So let's go to the rest of the questions from our YouTube community page, from our various social media outlets. I love it when, look, throughout the course of the contest season, you're going to offer your thoughts as far as what's going to happen at a show. You may even offer your predictions. And what happens many times, I guess the backlash is that is between the competitors that you did not pick to win and extends down to their families and their friends and their followers. They all turn on you. Your response to essentially not saying that everybody's going to come in first place.
Sid, I've been doing this a long time now. I've been doing this almost like 20 years, at least analyzing the industry and reporting on it. And you know what? The only person that's ever happy with what I say is the guy who wins or the woman who wins. If someone thinks they deserve to win a show and you don't agree with that, you're villainized and you can't win. And that's why a lot of people don't go into, journalism essentially, or at least, critiquing these shows because they're afraid they're going to piss off people that they're friends with. And it's sad that we can't separate friendship from analyst, or analysis, because I have to go and critique a show. And if I don't think, if I think that Derek deserves to beat Nick Walker, now all the Nick Walker fans are pissed off, which I don't care about. But then Nick Walker is pissed off. His family's pissed off. It's going to happen every time. Just like I'm sure Bonac, thinks he should have won the New York Pro. And I'm sure anyone who said that Nick Walker deserved, Bonac's going to be mad at this. And that's just human nature. Now, I think what happens is eventually, once the energy of that whole show and it kind of dies down and if a month or 2 passes, people forget about it. And then I haven't had anyone long-term not like me, short-term, yeah, because it stings, when you give your best and you look your best and you bring something to the stage that you think deserves to be, rewarded with first place, and then you don't get it. And then you have people, agreeing with the decision. It's like all of a sudden they become the enemy, at least in your mind, because you're so hurt by the fact that you weren't able to achieve something that you thought was yours to take. And I think I said it right from the beginning. I said the best thing that ever happened to Nick Walker was that he lost Pittsburgh. And now people say, how can that be a good thing? Well, he got to do New York. He's the people's champ now. Everyone's rooting for him. He won New York. He's got 3 rings now. He's going to the Olympia. His career is in the right trajectory now. Losing sometimes is not a bad thing. It's a good thing because it remotivates you and gets you even hungrier for what you're looking for. So, 50% of the people probably think Nick Walker should have won. 50% think Derek should have won. The judges thought Derek should win, and those are the only important people on contest day that matter. Nick Walker, I've been a Nick Walker fan for, since the beginning and a big supporter of his. And obviously when he looks his best, I'm the first guy to, commend him. He has a mass monster physique, kind of, much better than my physique ever was, but I'm saying along the lines of mine so I can relate to his physique better. And I love to see him win. And I hope he wins in Olympia one day. But if I don't think he deserves to win a show and someone else looks better, I'm going to report on that. Same thing with all the other guys out there. And, and like I said, I've only had a couple problems over the years that I know about that, about people. And it's tough. It puts us in a tough position because, I know I've talked to Dennis James about this too. No one's ever happy when you critique a show because they get mad at you if you don't say they deserve to win, especially if you're their friends. And Dennis is friends with everyone. So, someone's going to be pissed at Dennis at some point in time or not. And same thing with me, you go to the shows, we hang out with these guys, we interview them, we talk to them, we know their family, and, and sometimes we have to say, bad stuff about them, or bad stuff about their physique, not about them personally. And it's a tough position, but you know what? As we say here at RxMuscle, Sid, the truth hurts.
Speaking of Nick Walker, Olympia, top competitors, we actually had a chance to interview Steve Weinberger, IFBB head judge, and the promoter of the New York Pro. That interview is live right now on the channel, so check it out. Get Steve's thoughts on Nick Walker, his viability as a top Olympia threat, as well as his thoughts on Derek, on Martin, and really just about the whole gamut of the top Olympia competitors. So very insightful interview. Go check it out. It's live on the channel.
I'm so excited that you went and did that, Sid. I can't wait to see it. So, I said, Sid, you got to get down. I know Sid trains at Steve's gym. So, Sid, you got to get Steve on camera. We got to find out, what his thoughts are about Nick from the Pittsburgh to the New York.
Yeah.
And what his future prospects are. And Sid went down there and knocked it out of the park. And you guys want to check this interview out. It's great.
Let's go to Muscle Insight HQ. Shout out to him. Does a really good job. It's a new page, but if you go check out his page on Instagram, it's Muscle Insight HQ. Does really high-end graphics, infographics, really descriptive stuff. Really does his research. So I wanted to give him a shout out. Do you think the IFBB could move towards offering appearance fees to top open athletes in the future to help strengthen lineups of smaller shows?
There's two ways you can get top lineups. One way is what Arnold did. Let's give $750,000. You're going to get the best lineup in the world. Another way, is to try to entice athletes that you really want in your show by giving them some sort of guaranteed bonus. Now, listen, this is not something that's new to sports. I mean, there's appearance fees in all types of sports. It might be new to bodybuilding. But listen, if I'm holding a show and I'm a promoter, let's say I have $2 million to give away. All right. I have to figure out how I'm going to portion it out. If I'm running a show, let's say, Sid, you and I are going to run a show and someone gives us $2 million and says, look, you put on the best show. I trust you guys with the money, put it on the best show. If I want to get top talent there and I'm worried that I'm not going to be able to get, let's say I want Kai Green in my show. Okay. Rather than take that $2 million and give it all in prize money to athletes, I could earmark some of that and say, you know what? I'm going to offer Kai $75,000 guaranteed. Now, if he wins whatever the first place is, $100,000, then, maybe we'll take some of it off. I don't know, whatever the deal is, but I'm going to give him some guaranteed money. This guy is going to show up at my show. And now I can say I have Kai Green in my show. And it didn't cost me anything because I had that $2 million earmarked for prize money anyway. And the athletes don't know that money wasn't going to be in there. They only know what the money I'm telling people are. So I think that more promoters should think about, hey, what guys do I want in my show? Because they're big draws. Nick Walker, let's think Nick Walker, huge draw, right? I'm sure if you enticed him with a little appearance fee money, he'd probably show up. Maybe Phil Heath. Phil Heath has expressed his interest. He goes, man, if the money's good, I'll show up at the Masters Olympia. So I think that appearance fees are going to be something in the future we might see, especially because the prize money is so high now. We might see guys saying, all right, we got all this prize money. Let's earmark some of it for appearance fees, guaranteed money for these guys to come. I know Brandon Curry wanted to do the Masters Olympia. I don't know if he's going to show up or not, but, he'd be a draw. I'd like to see him in Bonac. They're both over 40. I'd like to see them battling for the Masters Olympia title. Remember, they battled a few years ago in 2019. They were first and second at the Olympia. Why not get those guys in the Masters? All you got to do is offer them a little bit of money and, pay their expenses. They'll go. Bonac's hit every show this year already. Why not do Masters Olympia?
3 shows already, right? Yeah, right. 3 shows.
Yeah. So I think that I'm not against it. I'm actually for it. I just think it has to be, figured out. If you got Phil Heath and Kai at the Masters Olympia, let's get them on there. Let's get them on that stage and create excitement. Look, Levrone did the Olympia. He didn't look good, but everyone was super excited about the fact that he was there, right? So And Kai is not that old. He still looks great. Phil looks great. We saw him, at the Pittsburgh show. You can certainly see those guys on stage if they were enticed with enough money. And I think at this point, those guys never made the kind of money that the guys are making today. So if there was money put out there as an appearance fee, I think we would get those guys on stage again.
Take one more question. Full disclosure, like we like to be honest with you. We are pre-recording this. It's Tuesday, and we have after hours. The guys are about ready to rumble, ready to go. So
we got 9 minutes. We got a couple more questions.
We got a couple. Okay.
Yeah.
Does liquid peptide serums for hair, such as RU58841, require finasteride serum peptide combo to keep the follicle, or can the RU just grow new follicles? Asking because I know the combo is needed for people on steroids, but what about people who just lost their hair in the past from roids and now evenly receded hairlines? Would, say, a combination of RU and minoxidil work?
I've been fighting the hair loss battle for many, many years now, and I'm still losing. But the one thing that I've used for the last 25 years that seemed to stop my hair loss was finasteride. Now, I'm a very high DHT converter, so I convert a lot of testosterone to DHT. It's been confirmed on my DNA analysis. I sell these DNA kits on DavePalumbo.com called DNA Power. They test everything, and one of the things that I found out when I got my test done was that I'm a very high DHT converter, which has been confirmed with blood work. Even when I'm off drugs, I still have high DHT. But when I take finasteride, it gets it down into the normal range. And when I started doing that, my hair loss stopped. So high DHT, definitely a problem. As far as regrowth, minoxidil, Rogaine, they never really worked for me at all. They only created like dandruff. They gave me dandruff. I didn't like it. I haven't tried the RU, the prostaglandin that people are using now. I just haven't gotten any good feedback on people regrowing hair, reliably. What that means is that some people, every once in a while, you get a guy who actually gets good results. Most of the time, there's no hair regrowth. The best way to replace hair is right now is to go to Turkey or one of these hair restoration clinics. I got it done back in 2000 when it wasn't even as good as it is today. And I got some hair back. I still, I got some hair on my head. But the new guys that are doing it these days, Bumstead did it, Ian Valier did it. All these guys out there that are doing it, they got a head of hair, so it works. I think that's our best bet. And as that process becomes perfected even more, and I think what the next generation will be is creating stem cells that can turn into hair follicles. They said they told me 30 years ago they were going to be able to do stem cells and regrow hair. Still hasn't happened, but I'm sure whoever breaks the code is going to be a very wealthy individual, because that's guys in their hair. We want our hair back.
A couple of programming related questions. One person wants the confessionals back. We are actually working on another show format with Lee. We discussed it with Lee privately. He seems to be on board with it. He likes it. So we will further flesh it out, and hopefully we'll have an announcement soon. But the plan is to bring Lee back into the fold in a new and exciting feature, which would actually involve you, the fans, with some live interaction as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So if we get that going, that's going to be a lot of fun. Let me squeeze in this question. I'm 39 years old, 400 mg test a week, 200 Masteron a week. I'm on your low carb diet and lost 40 pounds, currently 230 pounds, still borderline pre-diabetic. My fasted morning blood sugar levels 104 to 114. Doesn't matter if I didn't eat carbs the night before or my last meal 6 p.m. with no carbs. Fasted morning blood sugars levels range 104 to 114. I've been on metformin. Doesn't work. I know you've talked about insulin, and I believe it'll help me. So what dosages of long-acting insulin do you recommend? What brand or type of insulin, and at what time, and how should I take it?
Yeah, these doctors are I hate to say it, because I was going into that field. Some of these guys are just completely ignorant. I have a client who has also a high fasting blood sugar. He went to his doctor, he said, look, I don't want to take metformin. It doesn't work. I'm waking up with high fasting blood sugars. I'd like to take a long-acting insulin like Toujeo, which is a once-a-day insulin. Toujeo, Tresiba are the two best. If you can get a prescription for them and your insurance covers it, it's great because you only have to take it once a day. The other ones like Lantus, Novulin N, which is very popular because guys can go into Walmart here in the United States and pick it up for no prescription, $25. those require 2 shots a day every 12 hours because they don't last the full 24 like the Tresiba or Toujeo lasts. This guy says I would like a prescription, says to his doctor. His doctor's like, well, we don't do that. Our protocol is to give metformin first. And he's like, well, I don't want metformin. He goes, well, do you realize that if you take 1 single unit of insulin, it will drop that fasting blood sugar from 100 to 50, and you will wake up almost in a coma. This is what the doctor says to him, which the doctor obviously has no idea about insulin or what it does. Rather than keep his mouth shut and not say anything and real what an ignorant person he is, he goes and quotes what insulin does, but what he's quoting is what fast-acting insulin does. So he obviously doesn't know the difference between fast-acting and long-acting insulin. Long-acting insulin working in the background would never drop blood sugar that dramatically, that quickly, not 1 IU. And you could take 20 IUs and it wouldn't drop your blood sugar that dramatically. So these doctors are ignorant. They don't know. You're going to have a tough time getting a doctor to write a prescription unless you go to a clinic, and you have a person who's, who has good foresight. Some of the endocrinologists these days, like my friend Lenny, they are thinking ahead of the curve. They want to prevent people from getting diabetes. And so by giving a long-acting insulin, you take that burden off your pancreas. The pancreas doesn't burn out. It preserves beta cell function, and you get better blood sugar control. And I know, like I said, it's kind of controversial because people don't want to think they have to take insulin. Matter of fact, people who hear you got to take insulin, they think they're going to become diabetic from taking the insulin. But it's not the insulin that makes you diabetic, it's the high blood sugar that makes you diabetic. So if you lower your high blood sugar with a long-acting insulin, it's going to prevent you from becoming diabetic. Diabetic has nothing to do with insulin. It has to do with blood sugar control. If you control your blood sugars and you keep them low and you keep that hemoglobin A1C under, around 5.3, aside, because most people are in the high 5s or 6s, you're not going to get those cumulative side effects that you get from high blood sugars in your pancreas. Your kidneys are going to be saved. Your cognitive function is going to be saved. Your extremities are going to be saved, the circulation. And you'll thank me later in life when you're older and you don't have diabetes. But the point is that these doctors won't prescribe it most of the time, and they don't even know the difference between long-acting and short-acting insulin. So a lot of times you got to take the onus of responsibility yourself. Go to Walmart, buy an Novulin N, and if you're interested in learning the protocol, you can contact me. I can help you. I also have other people who are certified diabetes educators that will, can also advise you if you have very, very poor blood sugar control. That's the way to correct it, okay? Because don't let these doctors tell you this is the way to do it, because the healthcare system, unfortunately, in this country is really geared at just treating symptoms, not making you healthier. And they don't want to give you cures, or they don't want to give you the right solution because they want to keep you coming back, And so it's unfortunate, but you got to take your own health into your own hands. Don't let other people give you ignorant responses and just accept it. If I have high blood sugars, like I was waking up with some high fasting blood sugars, I took it into my responsibility in my own hand. Luckily, I have a doctor I work with who was able to prescribe me Toujeo. And you know what? My blood sugars are great. My hemoglobin A1C is 5.1. I wake up every day in the high 70s or early 80s, and for blood sugar, which is exactly what you want, under 90, and I feel great. So you know what? You can either listen to me, you don't have to listen to me. Eventually, you'll probably come to me and ask me for advice, because this is the right solution.
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Again, reminder right now, all new episode of the After Hours podcast, Heavy Muscle Radio, and then, of course, our one-on-one interview with Steve Weinberger live from Bev's Gym. If you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss anything that we have up and coming. On Instagram, official_RxMuscle. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.